You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, May 12th, and you might notice that I'm here solo dolo on a Monday. Weston couldn't make today's show. He is at the Knicks playoff game, so I hope he enjoys that. Sounds like a lot of fun. The Warriors have a game tonight as well. Hopefully they can at least win one game at home and get back on track. But this is a 49ers podcast, so we're going to get right into it. It is also schedule release week for the NFL. In fact, we're starting to get some little, notes here and there about some of the games, mostly the primetime games. And I got to say, we're hearing about a lot of the Eagles games so far, and I get it. They won the Super Bowl. I'm already tired of it, though. But we also found out for Christmas, we're going to get Broncos Chiefs. Hopefully that's not a snoozer. Then on November 28th, Bears and Eagles. Eagles and Cowboys are opening up the season. Thursday night football. So, we're going to get more of these as the week goes on. And of course, we're going to get the full schedule release on Wednesday. Expect me to go live after that gets dropped. I won't be in the schedule release video this year, though. Don't you worry. I won't be jinxing the 49ers season this time around, all right? So Super Bowl should be our expectation because I won't be in the video. But anyway, let's get into today's slot of news. So the 49ers hosted a free agent wide receiver. And shout out to Coach Yak on Twitter for giving us this bit of news, breaking the news for us. Gabe Davis visiting the 49ers today, free agent wide receivers. As you guys may or may not know, Gabe Davis has been in the league for a few years now, spent most of his time with the Bills from 2020 to 2023 season. And he had a, pretty good stretch with the Bills, I would say. 2022, 599 yards, 7 touchdowns. 2021, 549 yards, 6 touchdowns. 2022, 836 yards, 7 touchdowns. So, in that span, and let me not forget 2023, 746 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. That Bills tenure, he was kind of a model of consistency in that time. And you see not a lot of games missed in that span. But in 2024, he signed with the Jags. And that's where it all kind of I don't want to say fell off the rails, but it was definitely a different version of Gabe Davis than we had seen before. And most of that is attributed to, just some injuries that he faced. 10 games played in 2024, 20 receiving yards, 20 receptions, 239 receiving yards. His yards per reception were way down in comparison to his Bills days. A change of scenery, a change of offense, change of quarterback could, do that to you. And only 2 touchdowns. But all in all, that time or this past season, very disappointing for Gabe Davis. And I'm sure, the Jags were a little disappointed by the output, but a lot of that had to do with some injuries. Even in the 2023 season, he missed the final regular season game and the postseason with a sprained PCL in his left knee. So that he suffered in week 17. So already, he's going into 2024, with that on, the last thing that he faced, that PCL. He comes back, he signs with the Jags. And then in week 11 with the Jags, he suffers a torn meniscus. Again, left knee. So that's now somewhat a recurring thing, I guess, with that knee. Maybe it's problematic. I don't know. He did need surgery for the torn meniscus, of course. And, it pretty much ended his season. So it was going to sideline him for up to 6 months. I would assume that now he's maybe fine and behind that. And, that's why he's taking some free agent visits. But, maybe something to be wary of that, maybe this is something he's going to be kind of dealing with going forward. The injury history, I don't know. I mean, he could get right back on track, but just something to be mindful of if I'm the 49ers. But I don't hate that they're, going after this as well and just doing their due diligence, on Gabe Davis, and bringing him in certainly does not necessarily mean that he's going to sign. But if he does end up signing, I just hope that, the medicals are all clean and all that. He also had some shoulder issues in the early part of the 24 season. So yeah, it was definitely a up and down, year for Gabe Davis, but mostly down, I would say, for him. And if you look at the 49ers wide receiver room already, I mean, like they added 3 wide receivers just after the draft alone in Jordan Watkins, who they spent a draft pick on, Junior Bergen, who they, got the 7th round last pick of this draft, and then of their draft, I should say. And then Isaiah Nayer as an undrafted free agent. So if you look at the full room, and for the audio listeners, I'm going to list everyone off. You got Brandon Aiyuk, who we don't know exactly when he's going to be back on the field at 100%, right? And you got Ricky Pearsall entering his 2nd year. Certainly big expectations for him. Juwan Jennings, that I think has proven, when he has a larger role, you can move the ball with him. He's not Brandon Aiyuk, but I think he's proven that he could be a guy in your offense. Then you got Demarcus Robinson, who they signed this offseason, right? The big question about Demarcus Robinson is he going to be suspended or not? There's been no word on that so far. And I see Demarcus Robinson as like the clear 1-to-1 sort of, not replacement, but just fill in for Brandon Aiyuk when Brandon Ayuk's out. But yeah, the only problem is he's going to be suspended. So like, how much is Demarcus Robinson really helping here? I got to look at the contract details for Robinson. So I don't want to speak out of my ass here, but I almost wonder if he'd be on the cutting block if he does end up getting suspended. Because it's like, if he's only going to fill in for Aiyuk for 1 or 2 games, and then Aiyuk is back, and then Demarcus Robinson gets pushed down again, like, how much is that really helping? I mean, I don't know. I like Demarcus Robinson. I think he's a good player, but definitely his value not as high if he's going to be suspended. But of course, like I said, we don't really know if he will be or how long it's going to be. So maybe that's why the 49ers are poking around on free agent wide receivers. Maybe they don't know either, or maybe they feel like he will get suspended. But besides that, those are the top 4 guys. Then you got Jacob Cowing, of course, also entering his 2nd year. And we haven't seen much of Jacob Cowing, right? We want to see more. Jordan Watkins is a draft pick this year. We'll see how much involvement he has. Rookie wide receivers in this offense and Kyle Shanahan's world they don't usually see a lot of time. I think Ricky Pearsall and even Brandon Aiyuk, when he was a 1st-round pick, although Aiyuk did go through the doghouse, like most of these guys, it's tough for them to get a lot of playing time in their first year. So we'll see what Jacob Cowing can do in his 2nd. We'll see what Jordan Watkins can do in his 1st year. But we should temper our expectations. Then we got Tariq Owens, who was an undrafted free agent last year. Of course, he spent the season on the practice squad for the team. We'll see how he looks this year. Then you got Isaiah Nayer, the undrafted free agent. We'll talk more about him in a bit. Definitely want to talk more about him. Some interesting things have been said on Isaiah Nayer so far already, with rookie minicamp having taken place on Friday, and the beat writers attended. Then you got Junior Bergen, who the 49ers, like I said, drafted in the 7th round. his way to the roster or even making the practice squad is going to be his return ability, right? So that's how he's going to be able to prove out his value. Then you got Russell Gage, veteran, depth, cool. Trent Taylor, veteran, depth, not very good at this point in his career. Like, I don't see a way for Trent Taylor making it to the 53. Maybe they keep him on the practice squad again. We'll see. But, like, with the room getting significantly, I don't want to say like it's deeper, and there's a lot of new players getting added into the mix, younger players, guys with a little more upside. Could be time for Trent Taylor to say his goodbyes, but let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Trent's still on the roster, still 90-man roster as of right now. We're not coming down to 53 quite yet. And finally, we got Isaiah Hodgins on the team. So that rounds out the 49ers wide receiver room as it stands right now. You got 12 wide receivers. So if they added another guy like Gabe Davis into the mix, I mean, they'd have to cut someone from the team, because I think they are full at 90 players right now. So if they picked up Gabe Davis, who's getting cut? Are they cutting one of the wide receivers? Are they cutting from another position? I don't know, but I'm not saying that Gabe Davis would be a bad signing. I'm just saying that I don't know exactly where he fits in with all of this. And, he'd probably be on the left column because he has starting experience. He's been in the league several years now, so he'd be a veteran. So I put him on the left column along with, some of these guys that would be higher up in the pecking order. But that moves some other guys down, so we'll see. I kind of think the wide receiver room is, I don't want to say it's deep, because I still feel like there's a lot of unknowns, right? Like there's a lot of question marks. All the rookies are going to be question marks in their first season. For me, I don't think they're going to be contributors. And then you got Jacob Cowing, who we don't know what he's going to look like in his second year. I think this is a perfect comment. The Unfaithful Perspective says, it isn't deep, it's crowded. Exactly. Like if the wide receiver room were deep, that would insinuate that all the players are good, they're stacked, like it's an embarrassment of riches. I'm not sure I would describe the wide receiver room as that. Yes, it's crowded. That's the perfect way to put it. So yeah. And along with that, there's going to be competition, which is a good thing, I think, and hopefully the best guys, make the 53, right? I think there's a decent amount of talent at the top. Then there's a lot of question marks and a lot of meh, towards the end. But I did want to share a clip from what Clay Kubiak, who spoke with the media last week, what he had to say on Brandon Aiyuk, and then he was also asked about Ricky Pearsall. So I'm going to roll the clip here so you guys can hear.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon's doing great in his rehab. Expectations, it's kind of hard to pinpoint that. I mean, I know Brandon's working really hard. It's really hard to define those things, and I know he's doing everything he can do to give himself a chance to get back on the field. And I know that when we get back for camp, he's going to be working every day and just busting his butt to get ready to go. So that's all we can ask for. He's got the right mindset. We'll look forward to having him back out there.
Is this timetable uncertain? How much pressure does that put on Ricky to step up in some ways, and how do you help him manage those expectations as he continues to progress?
I don't think it's pressure. I think Ricky sees himself as a starter. He wants to be a starting receiver, and whether BA's out there or not, I think Ricky has that same expectation of himself, and we wouldn't want it any other way. That's how he saw himself last year. I think that's just how he is naturally.
All right. So on the Brandon Aiyuk front, I think Clay Kubiak's response is as expected. They don't really have any expectations on when exactly he's going to be coming back, or just expectations for the season, because you don't know it looks different on everyone when they come back, right? Some guys can just get right back into it. And, one thing I always say that, friend of the pod, Stefania Bell, who's been on the show before, always says is return to play does not equal return to performance. So even when Brandon Aiyuk is cleared for football and contact football, that does not mean he's going to be 100% the same guy that he was, before this injury, right? So I think being patient is key. And again, we don't know even when in the season he's going to be ready. But I think that's why people have questions about, okay, what's Ricky Pearsall going to be this year? Because certainly, he's going to have to step up. And I think we saw glimpses, some really good glimpses of what Jacob Cowing could be when he got some playing time late last season, right? And it was positive. And so if he could build on that, I think that's going to be a very good sign. Shout out John Chapman and Yak. So Coach Yak on Twitter, points out Ricky Pearsall's final 2 games of the 2024 season, 18 targets, 14 catches, 210 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. I say this stat all the time also, that Ricky Pearsall had more touchdowns last season in his limited playing time than Debo had. So I think that says a lot. But John poses a question. What is everyone's stat projection for Ricky Pearsall in 2025? And we think over under 1,000 yards? I saw Invader 49er in the comments put a prediction. 800 yards, 7 touchdowns for Pearsall this year. I like that number. If anyone else in the comments wants to give a prediction, I'm all for it. I love it. I think I'm going to go like 740 yards, and I'm going to go 6 touchdowns for Pearsall. And I think that would be good. The reason that I'm a little lower is because you got to remember, if Christian McCaffrey is back, he's going to get a bunch of touches. He's going to get a bunch of touchdowns, right? If he's back and he's healthy, like, he's going to be the focal point of the offense once again. So that will limit Ricky Pearsall's ceiling, I think, stats-wise. And then also, I 100% think that, Kittle will probably be unleashed a little bit more, hopefully. I'm putting that out in the universe. We need more George Kittle, right, in this offense. We got glimpses of it. We got glimpses of that last year, and it was great. So more of that, please. More of that. But yeah, I mean, Ricky Pearsall is going to probably be operating as, either wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, I would think, when Brandon Aiyuk is out. So that definitely creates more opportunity for Ricky Pearsall. But I just don't think it's going to be the amount of opportunities that he had late last season. I think there'll be other options still ahead of him. So that's why mine are a little bit lower, but 800 yards, 7 touchdowns would be great for a full season of Ricky Pearsall in his second year. That would be super positive development for Ricky. But it's not just Ricky, right? Like, there's other guys in this mix as well. There's Jacob Cowing, and we know that both of those guys have been working out together, and everything looks positive. Both of those guys have been working out with Brock Purdy. Of course, the clips that we're seeing here up on the screen is in the offseason before the offseason program started. So now they're, at the 49ers facility, and they're getting work in together. But even before that, Brock, Pearsall, Cowing, even Mac Jones, we're getting sessions in together and building that rapport. And we saw that rapport already with Purdy and Pearsall late in the season. I think that's just going to flourish. You think about the chemistry that Brandon Aiyuk and Purdy had, right? Like, just the feel that they had for each other and the timing of everything. I think we're going to see something similar for Ricky. Like I said, we already saw bits of that last year. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing that chemistry just grow even more for those two. Really looking forward to that. I think that's the key. That's the key to everything, to unlocking Ricky Pearsall's potential, is, the relationship and chemistry that they both have on the field. But Jacob Cowing, like I said, is in this mix as well. And of course, people wondering about Jacob Cowing, and going back to Clay Kubiak, and what he had to say about Jacob Cowing last week when he was asked by the media. I'll play the clip right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get Jake as much as involved as he shows his growth and development and what kind of camp he has. And Jake has done an outstanding job of showing up to our offseason in great shape, and he's getting better. And Kyle says this all the time, but it's so important for young players to show up to the offseason just ready to get better, right? They're in great shape. They can take these limited practices that we have with them to grow and get better. And Jake is doing a great job. He's had a great offseason. He's given himself a chance to get to camp and compete and to really contribute on offense. So,
and what about Ricky?
Riky's really in the same boat. I mean, him and Jake, I think they trained a lot together this offseason, and they look awesome. It's just physically, they're out there and they are getting better every day, right? And so Ricky, both those guys are similar because they kind of had setbacks, in the offseason. Jake had, I think, an injury. Ricky had his issues in the offseason. So there was kind of a slow progression into the season for different reasons. And we expect both those guys to keep improving the way they are and to be big contributors for us.
There's a couple key things that I think Kubiak mentions here. Is like, one of the first things he says is, we'll get Jake as much involved as he shows his growth and development. So I think that tells you right there that his lack of involvement last season was, partially because of the doghouse, I guess, but also just, he needed to develop in some areas before he really, before he deserves that opportunity to, get more playing time. And so, he also points out, the offseason has been great for him as far as the work that he's been able to get in and seeing some of that growth, and that should definitely help him. But in order for him to get those snaps on the field, I mean, he's going to have to put it all together. And not just that, but like, when you look at the entire depth chart, like we were seeing, like, he's going to have to, a couple guys he's going to have to beat out, right? Like, he's pretty low in the pecking order, like I said. So he's either going to have to beat guys out, or early in the season, if Brandon Aiyuk's not available for the first few weeks, if Demarcus Robinson is suspended, that is a prime opportunity for Jacob Cowing to show, I need more reps. Like, I deserve more reps, because he's going to suddenly be wide receiver 3, or at least he has the opportunity to. If Jacob Cowing does not prove that he's the wide receiver 3, they're not just going to give it to him. They'll probably throw in some other veteran like Russell Gage, or maybe Tariq Owens, like maybe Gabe Davis, just in case, if he does sign with the 49ers, right? But I think that's why, like, the work Cowan is doing right now is just so important for him to not just get on the field, but, stay on the field. In the early part of the season will be crucial for him and having that opportunity. So, and I agree with this. Invader 49er says Cowan needs to be that Taylor Gabriel role player. Yeah, I mean, obviously for Cowan, like, it's going to be, he fits a specific role, right? And I think it's a role that would be very complementary to everything else that they have on the offense. So, yeah, it would add another element, but he needs to do everything else. He needs to jump through the other hoops that Kyle has for him in order to earn those reps. So hopefully we do see that this year, though. As far as Juwan Jennings, I don't think any of us are worried about Juwan Jennings in the least bit, right? I mean, Clay Kubiak, when he was asked about Jennings, he said, if you ask Juwan, he says, I'm number one. And that's his mindset. And hey, more power to him, because You have to have that mindset. And I don't think it's surprising to anyone to learn that, because I think when you see him play, he plays like he's the alpha. He plays like he knows he's the top dog. And so that definitely comes out. And so, yeah, if Brandon Aiyuk misses a few games, we know Jauan Jennings is going to be able to handle whatever's thrown at him. He's not like, and this is no shade to Jauan, from a just pure skill set perspective, like he isn't a wide receiver one, but he can definitely get you through games as a wide receiver one, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's fine. That's definitely what the 49ers would hope and expect from him. And then if you got Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall together, that's fine, because you still got Kittle. In my mind, George Kittle is your wide receiver one. He's your wide receiver one and tight end one. Just like that. That's how good Kittle is, that he'll be your top option if Brandon Aiyuk misses a few weeks to start the season. But Jauan is, going to be, a complimentary piece, as well as will be Ricky Pearsall, you would expect. All right, now I'm intrigued. Consider me intrigued with Isaiah Neyor, and I was already intrigued. He was an undrafted free agent. When you hear what people had to say about him from the 49ers undrafted free agent class, like he was one name that people often brought up as, hey, like this is a guy to watch, right? And with rookie minicamp having been Friday, where the beat writers were able to attend and watch, Matt Barrows had a write-up on The Athletic and talked about Isaiah Neyor, and he said, quote, "The most visibly striking receiver in the minicamp was undrafted rookie Isaiah Neyor. He cuts a Randy Moss-like silhouette with a thin frame and long arms and legs. His big stride gobbles up yardage and immediately forces cornerbacks to turn and run with him." End quote. Big stride gobbles up yardage. It's poetry. I mean, it's great writing right here. But no, like Isaiah Neyor, I think, yeah, I mean, we're looking at a picture of him right here. You see the kind of lanky frame that he has, just like tall and thin, as Matt describes. That's a good thing to have. And I think his route running for an undrafted free agent is pretty damn good as well. So definitely intrigued by Isaiah Neyor and what he can bring to this offense, right? And we've seen clips of him as well, just his Nebraska days. Definitely someone who can surprise people, I think. And it sounds like he was already surprising some people at the rookie minicamp. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on Isaiah Neyor and keeping my ears peeled for what people got to say about him. But so far, it seems like he's going to be an interesting one to follow. So again, there's some interesting names in this wide receiver room, a lot of question marks, but some that I think have our interest peaked. And Neyor definitely one of those guys. Tariq Owens, I would say, is the other guy who may end up not surprising us. I mean, again, he was an undrafted free agent last year, Terrell Owens' son and all that. One thing that Matt Barrows said about him in regards to Friday's minicamp practice was that Tariq Owens was the tone setter for the practice, at least for the wide receivers. And you might be wondering, well, hold on, I'm trying to get myself back in here. You might be wondering why he was even participating at the rookie minicamp. Well, he was on the practice squad last year. There were some practice squad players who participated in the rookie minicamp this year, and so Tariq Owens was one of those. So he kind of already, knew what to expect. One thing that Barrows also said is that a lot of the rookie receivers, had trouble keeping up with the pace of Leonard Hankerson, the 49ers wide receiver coach. for the Friday practice, and that it was, those practices are pretty demanding, and those guys, including Nair, had a hard time keeping up, but that Tariq Owens, seemed to already know what to expect, and he was the tone setter. So, I mean, who knows? From the young guys, again, if he can be someone who sticks on the practice squad, who, if he ever gets the opportunity to come up from the practice squad to the 53, I think he could end up being someone interesting as well. Definitely someone I would pay attention to, once we get to training camp and all that. But a crowded 49ers wide receiver room, I think, is not a bad thing, because when you look back at the 49ers room some time ago, like even last year, like it just wasn't, there was a lot to be desired, I think, with the 49ers room. So I think, yes, I won't call it deep, crowded, but I think it's better. I think it's better than it was last year. Still some unknowns, but I think they've addressed quite a bit with this wide receiver group. So bearing the availability of Brandon Aiyuk early in the season, I think this is a pretty strong group of guys. Now, if they bring in Gabe Davis, maybe we'll feel a little bit better about that. And again, I know earlier I was pointing out, well, Gabe Davis dealt with a lot of injuries last year, kind of up and down, career. Yeah, crowded, far from being top heavy, exactly, on the 49ers room. Wide receiver room. If they add Gabe Davis, I don't think we'd be surprised. It just adds a little bit more to the top. Again, it's not like superstar power wide receiver room, but it definitely be enough to get the job done. It definitely be enough to make me feel comfortable about, hey, if anyone misses time, like, we're going to be okay, kind of. So, yeah, if Gabe Davis gets added to the mix, I think he would be, somewhere in the Demarcus Robinson tier. And certainly I'd put him ahead of Jacob Cowing until the 49ers see what Jacob Cowing is bringing to the table in year 2, right? He could end up being better, and you want to see him on the field before Gabe Davis. But if Gabe Davis signs, I'd put him ahead of Cowing at the very least. So, yeah, it'd be decent. We'll see what the 49ers do. Again, that took place today. And again, Wednesday, we'll be getting more information on the 49ers schedule. Should be a good one. We already know that the 49ers have the easiest schedule of any team in the league, just based on opponents and opponent records in 2024. So a prime opportunity for the 49ers to continue to be competitive even in 2025, even with all the changes on defense. Now, remember, the offense really didn't change all that much. In fact, like I'd argue the offense got better. You got Luke Farrell, who should improve the blocking. You're going to have Christian McCaffrey back, and you hope he's going to be healthy. You got Trent Williams back. You hope he's going to be healthy. So we'll see how it goes down. But the offense, I'm expecting to be way better than they were last year. So prime opportunity for the 49ers to be competitive. They could even win their division. It's really about how quickly the defense gets up to speed. And I have no worries about Robert Saleh being able to do that, right? If you have any, not questions, but like if you're wondering what I had to say about Robert Saleh and what Saleh said last week when he spoke with the media, check out my video from Friday, because I did talk about some of the most notable quotes from that one. Again, I'll be going live on Wednesday to talk about the 49ers schedule release. And then Friday, we'll be back with Wayne to talk about a couple of more updates. But for now, folks, have a good rest of your Monday. Go Dubs. I'll just go ahead and say go Knicks for Weston, who's at the game right now. And appreciate all of you that tuned in. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. Really helps me out. Hit that notification bell so you know when I go live next. But for now, Have a good Monday, folks. Peace.